Hey there, everybody. This is Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here with SF DocFest. Excited to have you back. For those of you that have been attending the festival for a long time, you know that we love cool, interesting stories and indie docs. And so you've just had a chance to see the really wonderful film, Satan Wants You. And we have Sean and Steve here with the filmmaking team. Welcome, guys.
Hi, thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us. I'm glad you thought the film was wonderful.
It involves Satan. How could it not be? Um, so I imagine like a lot of people in the audience are just kind of wondering this, like, how did you kind of decide that you wanted to kind of go down this rabbit hole and tell this story, and knew that there was kind of a larger, documentary to tell?
For us, I mean, we looked at this film and really saw an opportunity to tell the origin story of the Satanic Panic, which we, at the beginning of this process, you always you're looking at all the Satanic Panic and sort of what's happening in the present, being like, oh, how are we going to do this? There's so much stuff. And we had done our research and just realized no one has ever done a film about the book Michelle Remembers. No one has told about how this all started. And this was, we're like, this is our opportunity to do it.
Yeah, but you're also from Victoria.
Yeah, I buried the lead again too. So this is why Steve's here. So I grew up in Victoria. So like literally Michelle and Larry from the film, they live 10 minutes down the road from my family in a big house overlooking the ocean. This was something like it was everywhere when I was a kid, like right after the book was published. And I had you sort of always hear that they are connected to the Satanic Panic. And I had no idea until we started looking into this all these years later, that their story has touched millions and millions of people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you kind of started kind of peeling back these layers, I mean, did people want to kind of revisit that time? And how do you think, like the context of these many decades kind of, shaped the way people, saw it?
I think like a lot of the people that we spoke to, like a lot of the subjects in the film, it had been such a huge part of their lives. Like Debbie Nathan and Ken Lanning. Debbie Nathan's the investigative journalist. Ken Lanning's from the FBI. They had worked on it for like 10 years. So it was like a large portion of their life that they had spent researching, looking into it. So when we had actually like contacted them, they were really excited to talk because this is something that they really knew a lot about.
And if you think, I mean, from the family perspective too, this is something like really, the film's funny in places, but this is something that really traumatic for the family member, for the victims of the Satanic Panic and the family. I mean, when we called Larry's ex-wife, Marilyn, it was like 40 years hadn't passed at all. It was instant.
Oh, wow.
An hour-long conversation where all of it poured out, all the details that you hear in the film. And it was just, it was shocking to us.
Yeah. And she had kept everything. So she had like binders full of like receipts of like any articles that she had found. Anytime she heard anything about it on TV, she would throw in a VCR and start recording. She was just like keeping it because she just always felt like she needed to like help. And so anybody who kind of called her up, she was always willing to like provide them with anything that they could. And it was really interesting to chat with her and let her tell her side of the story for the first time.
And was there, as filmmakers, like, was there kind of an aesthetic approach that you wanted to take to the film, or was, like, what was kind of some of the decisions behind that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, like when you read the book, Michelle Remembers, it's gory. You can definitely see the horror, like the different kind of inspirations that they found at the time. Religious horror was really big when they had published their book, when they were writing the book. The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, like all of these things were like influencing the book. So when we were thinking about like telling this story, we were like, well, why don't we just kind of like lean into this a little bit and kind of like to play it up a little bit. In the end, like we knew that the book was completely fake. There's nothing true in it. Like it's so stupid. So we found like that kind of gave us a little bit of like creative license to kind of like play on these things a bit.
And I know you all are kind of early in your festival run, but I was kind of curious of like, how do different audiences kind of approach the film based on their age? So I'm in my late 40s, so it's like, it's something from my childhood, but like with Generation Z, or millennials, it's like, I mean, what do they think about this craziness, and like, how do they, do they see it more as history, or like, I don't know, it's such a WTF sort of situation,
But that's it. They literally have like no idea that this happened. The guy who cut our trailer, when he watched the film, he's young, he's like 30, and he was like, I had no idea, like no idea that this went on. And so like when there's this younger generation that are beginning to watch it, they're shocked.
And I think like part of the cool thing about our festival run, I mean, we premiered at South by, and like we had 3 sold out screenings back to back. And just looking out at the audience, it was a whole mixture of people. It was people who would have lived through the Satanic Panic, people like us who were children while it was happening, and then a whole new generation who has never heard of this. And it's like, what a dream for a film to connect with such a huge, broad array of people.
And then also, like, we started it in 2018, and it's come out now, and it just seems like we're in the middle of a panic again, right? Like it's really serendipitous how it all kind of came together.
Yeah, totally. And well, I guess how did you all, work together? I mean, did you have similar experiences, growing up, or like, how did you kind of like thread that needle of like, kind of being a primer, in the sense those that aren't familiar, but then also to be able to kind of revisit from those that might be, and like, how did, how did you kind of inject your personalities, I guess, in storytelling?
I mean, for one thing, I think a lot of people still have never heard about Michelle Remembers. I mean, it was a bestseller for that time. And even the people who lived through that and maybe have read the book, it's been so long that they weren't even quite sure what happened in it, or they'd heard about it from a friend. And so that for us was like, here's the ultimate starting point, because people aren't really clear about this part of the story, and we get to bring it to life for everyone. And then, what do you think? Part 2.
I don't know. I feel like part 1's good.
Our sensibility, I'd say, I mean, you're getting a taste for our personalities, just Q&A.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to laugh. I think it would be really hard to make, there's a lot of tragedy and sadness with the Satanic Panic and with satanic cult conspiracies. I think it would, for us, I mean, as storytellers, that sort of needs to be balanced with some humor, because it is absurd.
And it's hard not to like look back at 40 years ago to see what people were saying and to not kind of laugh. That was one of the biggest surprises at the premiere. There was so many people, like there was like constant laughs happening, because people are just like, it's so absurd. And like, this was on TV, this was everywhere, and people were just eating it up, like it's kind of fascinating to look at it, and humans are a weird species.
Do you think that there's anything, I mean, not to kind of end on a more serious question, but like, ways in which society like that we can't be, how do we kind of avoid being consumed by that, I guess, in the sense that like, or is it just human nature? And so all it is like in posterity, all you can do is recalibrate,
Kind of. We've had this question a lot, and I think that it really is like it happened before, it's happening now, it's going to happen again. Humans are a storytelling species, and we rely on these things to kind of explain the things that we can't explain in our lives. And it just kind of always feels like it's going to be there.
Though I think too, there's that moment in the film where the Wiccan police detective really unpacks what we all have a responsibility to do. And that is, each of us as individuals, when you're confronted with misinformation and lies, have to stand up and say, this is not true. Because if you don't do that, and you have to keep saying it over and over and over again until...
But baby, how are you going to stand up to artificial intelligence now?
Well, there's a future movie.
Well, so the thing I always try to remind our audiences is like, we're kind of, you're early in the life of the public life of the film, and so our responsibility is to go out there and kind of help spread the word about the films that we like. So how can we continue to follow the film on social media and, kind of say, hey, I want it to come to this town, or tell my friends, and also just kind of, I know you guys are working on some other interesting projects. So yeah, what's the way that we can kind of continue to follow your careers and also support the film?
Yeah, I mean, a couple good places, SatanWantsYouFilm.com. We are posting screenings, and once this goes into wider release for people who aren't in cities where they can actually go to a film festival, that'll be your chance later this year to watch it on streaming or cable, depending where you are in the world.
Yeah.
There's also, we have an Instagram account, Satan Wants You Film, again, where you can follow sort of step by step what's happening in festival land and then later on with release. And please write us if you do want this to play at a festival in your city this year, because we would love to come bring Satan to you. So
Well, very cool, guys. Well, thanks again for sharing the film. It was really terrific, and keep up the good work.
thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having us in your program. Thanks for watching.
Take care.